Good morning, sweet friends. This is Gina. Welcome to the Rebookery channel. I want to share with you guys a project that I started the other day. Let's see, today is Sunday, so I started it like, I don't know, Thursday, and here's why. No, I started it Wednesday because we have had so many snow days and ice days. We have missed so much school, and I just had this crazy idea that I wanted to do another poetry journal. So I've done a poetry journal. That was one of the very first journals I ever made, and I'll link it below. I've done a flip through of that particular journal, and it was when I was first starting out, and so yeah, it was just very near and dear to my heart. But as a teacher, especially as a teacher of elementary kids, I used poetry all the time in my classroom. And so there are just some poems that I just love, love, love. And I wanted to record those poems. So my first poetry journal was just recording all these cool poems that I used in my classroom. And now, fast forward to today, I wanted to make another poetry journal, but this time I just wanted poems that I liked, poems that spoke to me. And I have to give you a total disclaimer here. I am not well read. I do not have a very sophisticated palate, so my poems are all children's poems. So I'm just throwing that out there. I can't read really in-depth poems and, you know, wonderful authors and stuff, poets. I'm resolved to kids' poems. Those are my favorites. And the shorter the better. So this is a friend of mine was cleaning out her classroom, and she knows I love poetry, so she gave me this anthology, and it just has a ton of poems that you would use in your classroom. So this is right up my alley. So I started to look through this book, and I was just blown away at how much I love these poems. They are just oh, my favorites. I mean, they're about rain and weather and fairies and gardens and grandmas, and I love them. So I wanted to, I kind of got the idea of, okay, I'm going to take my most favorite poems out of here, and I'm going to make a journal of just those poems. And I toyed around with how I wanted it to look. And I originally started off with, I wanted it to be like a book where I bound it and everything, but then I was like, no, I don't want to spend that much time on it because I wanted to get started immediately, and I didn't have time to bind a book. So I went through my stash of binder books, and I found this one, which I love, 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 because it's got these really cool cards that go with it that I took out. And so my inside pages are not the original pages. I took some file folders. So I have tons of file folders at school because they're all of, you know, what I kept my lessons and stuff in, make sure I'm in frame here. And so I just took a bunch of file folders and I trimmed them down, and then I used the original cards that went with this as a template, and I just poked my holes. This one is nice because it only has 2 holes, and so I just made a bunch of cards, and they already have writing and stuff on them, and I'm okay with that because this is recycled. I want this to be recycled, and it just adds, you know, it just adds another layer. It adds another layer to the story. So, and this book is really tight, so I keep having to like open the cover because it hadn't been opened forever. So here's what I've been up to. I have been going through this book and making pages out of these poems. So I'll walk you through what I have so far. So this, and like I said, they came from this book right here. And basically, I'm just playing. I'm literally just playing. This is all over my kitchen table. I have paint, I have glitter, I have fabric, I have scrap paper, I have just this big bag of junk paper. And anything that's in there, I pull it out, and if I like a poem, I write it down. Some of them I've turned into like scrapbooks where I have photos or something, but other ones I just have book pages, scrap paper, and I've just played around with it. Okay, so this one was called My Dream, and it was about stars and the moon. And so I just painted, and then I just had some wrapping paper scraps, and I made a moon here. And then on this one, I just hand wrote the poem. And this is a great way to practice your handwriting. So I feel like I do a good job of practicing when I'm writing poems, because it's just that, you know, fluidness of writing words and writing phrases and stuff. And sometimes I'll write in cursive, and sometimes I'll write in print. So this is a great way to practice your handwriting. And then this one was one where I just did some collage. So this was all scraps of paper. And then I didn't want to copy this poem because it was really long, and I knew I wouldn't be able to fit it all on the page. So on this one, I just actually cut it out of the book, and I made sure that, like, the poem that was on the back, I wasn't necessarily one I wanted to use. So I just cut it, and I put it on this page, and then I just sewed some buttons on this. It's got a lot of texture. This one... Okay, so this one is just like a fold out. And so this poem is called Mistakes, and it's a poem, and I think it might be about Ben Franklin. I'm not for sure, but it's about mistakes and how you learn from your mistakes. And so from this, I highlighted this part right here. They learned from their mistakes. And I just have a box of photos, and I found this photo of me from a long time ago, and I stuck that on. Just put some wrapping paper and some wallpaper around it to create a frame. And then I found in my bag, I had a transparency, a math transparency, and it said skills practice. And so I thought that was kind of fitting. I put that on there. I wrote my name. I really like this one. I like how that turned out. And so then on this one is about elves and mushrooms, and I hand wrote it, and I just played around with some watercolor on the back and some ink, and these are some stamps that a dear friend of mine has made me, and so I wanted to practice the stamps. And then I just took a book page. I have an old science book in this bag, and I had all this text that was about butterflies and stuff left over from another layout in here. And so I just took all these words and I glued them along the bottom. And then this was just, I just stamped this on a piece of book page. So this one, I love this one because I am not an artist. I cannot draw. I wish I could like that. It's something I practice, and it's something I try to do, but I just don't have, I don't know, my skills are just very limited. But I drew a paintbrush, and I drew another paintbrush, and I was so proud of myself for doing that. I did this one Friday night. And then this is just some cut off from some fabric that I'm working on with some kits for my shop. And then this poem was called The Painting Lesson. And so then I just took daubs of paint and put that on there. And again, I just hand wrote it. And I always try to put the author's name, if it's there. I always try to put it on the layout too. Okay, so this one had a lot of writing, but I was okay with it. I was in the mood to write, and I did print on this one. So this is, again, an image from this old science book, and it was caterpillar and cocoon and turned into a moth. And so here's the poem, and it's called The Cocoon. But then the book page that this came from, I clipped out phrases from it. And so it says, first there is the egg. This hatches into a caterpillar, which molts as it grows larger. Then the caterpillar makes chrysalis, or a cocoon. In the cocoon, the body, feelers, legs, and wings of an insect, but it's not a butterfly, it is a moth. So just kind of put that on there, and I like how this turned out. And so this had paint on the back of it, and I just did some drawings of some flowers and kind of added a little bit of watercolor paint there. This one was just a piece of file folder. I put a piece of wrapping paper on top of it, and then I had a diagram of a tree, and so it went well with this poem. The poem's called The Oaks. The oaks stand straight and tall, but not in boots nor any shoes at all, just in roots. And so I put all that together and did some stitching. This one I love, so I'll pull this one out. This one I love because it's about a moon. And so I watercolored this first, And then I wanted to make the moon go with this poem, and it's supposed to be thin, sharp, and ghostly white. So I had a doily. So I just started pulling this doily and making, these are just layers of this paper doily, and I made this this moon out of it. And then this was a book page, like from an old reader. And I thought it was kind of cool how the girl and the dog were looking up. And even though this is about the winter and this looks like it's in the spring or summer, I went ahead and put it on here anyway, just because it looked perfect. And then I added some stars and sewed some fabric on, and I really like that one. And that poem is really neat. So this poem is called Ginger, and this came from a little tell-a-tale book, and I think I had one in my shop. I don't know if I do anymore, but it was called the Jolly Jingles, I think. But anyway, it's a little book of poems, and so this one was called Ginger. And I thought the poem was really, really cute because it's about a naughty little dog. And so I was like, all right, I'll put this on here. And then I found a picture of my dog, Grover, and I thought, okay, wouldn't it be cute to change the name from Ginger to Grover? And then I put a picture of Grover on here, and I put the original illustration, and just, yeah. So I love that one. This one is a Langston Hughes poem, and I know I've done this poem several times before in various journals, but this is one of my most favorite poems by Langston Hughes, April Rain Song. And it starts off, let the rain kiss you, let the rain beat upon your head. And I love that. So I went to go find some pictures of my son, because I know there was this one time he was playing in the rain, but I couldn't find those pictures. But what I did find was a picture of him in our backyard, and he was swinging, and we had the sprinkler on. So I thought that would be perfect to put in here. And then over on the side, I put, sometimes you have to make your own rain. So I had a lot of fun just painting on this, using pins, using some stickers, cutting out the photo, and then going ahead and finishing the rest of the photo to make it look like it really went all the way up. And it was kind of a scrapbook because it reminds me of that day, because I can remember that day even though it was a long time ago. This was a poem about bunny rabbits. This was a book, a Bambi book, and I think it was my own Bambi book. And my brother had colored all over it, and I just have hung on to this page forever. I've been cutting up this book and using it. So I went ahead and pulled this out. Even though it has green marker all over it, I went ahead and pulled it out and went ahead and added this to the poem, and it looks totally fine. You can't even tell that it's really been colored with marker. So the poem's called Little Bunny Rabbits, and then again, I just took some text from a book page that I had and just thought it went fittingly with this. Over on this side, this was from that Tell-a-Tales book again. This one's called The Fuzzies, and so it's about a little girl and she's blowing dandelions. So I just added some other little artwork that was from book pages, and then I used my pen to draw the dandelion fuzzies. So I'll put that one in there. So this is a random photo that I have of when I was playing around, oh my gosh, several years ago with just different cameras. And so this is a picture I took on my deck of just some trees, and they were blowing in the wind. And I don't know, this picture's just been sitting in this box. And so it reminded me of a poem called Brooms. And I remember this poem using it in my classroom, and it was about how the trees are like brooms and they sweep across the sky. So I found that poem, I wrote it down, put this on here, did some sewing, and then this came from, this is the weirdest thing. It's a sticker package for baby boys, and I don't have any baby boys, but I just didn't want to throw it away. But I thought it would be kind of cute because it had all this laundry, and this was like a baby onesie, so I just cut it off so it looks like a shirt. But yeah, so just because to me, when it's windy outside and stuff, I always think about laundry blowing in the breeze. And then on this one right here, this was, oh, I love this poem. So this poem's called Start of a Storm, and it's just, oh my gosh, it is just a beautiful poem. I'll read it to you. The trees go wild, yellow stabs the sky, awnings leap, papers fly, and suddenly, with a rattling cry, against the pane roars the rain. And it's by Lou Ann Welty. Anyway, so on this one, I took a piece of wrapping paper and I cut out of Bolt to Lightning. This is some envelope, and this is some more wrapping paper scraps, and I just turned it into a house. And then as I was digging through this bag, I had this little package, or this little paper that had all these kitty cat stamps on it, and so I just stuck all these cats on here. I don't even know why, but like I put one cat in the window. So yeah, I love that one. That one's a cute one. All right, this one, so this is the back of a I have a bunch of these cards since I teach science. Used to be able to get them free from the Missouri Conservation Department. And it would be for when you go out hiking and stuff, and you could track animal tracks, and there's one for fossils and there's one for trees. So it was in this bag, so I thought, well, this would be kind of cool to use for a poem. And so the poem that I have on here is one about a moth, and I can't find the title. I don't know where I put the title on this one. Maybe I didn't put the title on this one. Anyway, so this was a picture of a moth that I'd cut out from a field guide, and it was missing part of its wing, so I just put it on the edge here, added some produce stickers, and then I wrote the poem, and I got to use some pretty pens and just kind of colored. This is colored pencil, and then I just sewed that on there. And so, yep, that goes right there. So this one, I'm just finished, and I'm getting ready to put in here. So this is a poem called Summer Night, and it's about just the evening and crickets and things like that. So this image right here was from a Winnie the Pooh book that the pages had been torn apart. It was just a cutter book that I had in that bag, and so it fit perfectly on here, so I cut it out and I glued it on. With some of the scrap, I made a little moon, and then I wrote the poem on the trees, and then I stamped its title. So then on this side, this is a cool little poem called I Wouldn't Miss It. And it's about being in the kitchen when your mom cooks, because you get to lick the frosting when she's making a cake. And that is so true. Like that was, for us, it wasn't necessarily the bowls, it was licking the beaters. And that was a huge, huge thing growing up. I loved doing that. So for this one, I did, I cut the poem out and stuck it on here because I knew I didn't have a lot of space. But then I found a picture of me with one of my birthday cakes, and I don't know, I trimmed it down because I have like 3 pictures of this. And so I trimmed it down and just stuck it on here. And then this is just some wrapping paper scraps again. And then I just have these cute little stamps that are about baking, and I love to use them. And so I just put those little stamps on there. And so this is a poem. This is about my mom. So I've got a few done, and I'm going to try to do another one here and show you guys a little bit of my process. I'm going to start with a poem. I'm flipping through that book, seeing if I can find one. I'm looking for a small one because I pulled out a small little card here, so I'm just looking for a small poem. And as I'm looking, I find this one about a kite, and I know that I have some pictures of my son flying a kite a long time ago. So I'm thinking, okay, I'm going to do that, and I'll find those pictures. So I just reached for some paper in my drawer, and I have some of that blueprint left over from the last time I did a process video, so I'm going to use that because that would make a nice background, a nice sky. So I'm just going to glue it on, cut off the excess, and then I grabbed for some scraps, just some wrapping paper scraps to put on those corners. And I'm going to do it in like some squares or rectangles, just because it kind of gives it that collage look. And that's kind of what I'm going to go for. Since this is so small, I want to keep it from being too busy, which I say that right now, but when you see the finished product, it's totally the opposite. It's very, very busy. So I'm thinking now that I'm going to do, the thing with my son and the kite. And I reached into my drawer and I found some photos. So I pulled the photos out, and I saw that I had some photos of some birds from my backyard. So this was probably about 3 or 4 years ago. I always have cardinals that hang out in the wintertime in my backyard because I have a lot of trees. And so I was just taking pictures of cardinals. Looks like it's fall because there's no leaves on the trees, but I can also see some leaves in the background, like from a a maple tree or something. So I was like, you know what? I've had these photos sitting around forever and I've never really documented them. I didn't put them in a journal, so why not put them in now? So I take the one photo of the mama cardinal, and I love the colors in that photo. So I'm going to trim it down so that it will fit on that card. And then once I put it on here, I'm thinking, okay, now I just need to go find a poem about birds or cardinals. But the problem is that in this poem book, there are no small bird poems. Like, they're all really, really long, and that photo takes up most of the space. So I've got to get creative. I've got to find another poem. So I put it down, I went and stitched, and I reached for another poem book. So this is a Cutter book. This is a little golden book of poems, and it's seen better days. So I'm going to flip through here and see if there's any poems. And the first poem I see is one about a little girl, and she gets up and she sings. And it kind of stuck in my head as I was flipping through the rest of the pages, because the thing about my cardinals is that they make so much noise. I love them, and they're just always making noise in the backyard. So even though this is about a little girl getting up and singing, once I take the text and I put it with this photo, you wouldn't know that it's about a little girl. It could be about anything that sings. So I kind of like that. So I decided to use this poem, and I'm just going to cut it out and glue it on. And I want to add some interest to this. So I'm just going to add some other scraps of paper, some more wrapping paper. I really like the red of the cardinal, and I'm going to pull, there's some Christmas wrapping paper that I put the title on. Took it over to my machine, did a little bit of sewing with some brown and red fabric that I like. And then I'm just kind of adding some bits all around the photo. And I'm trying to stick to the stuff that I have right here in front of me. So there's these little yellow flowers you're going to see me put on here. And they actually came from that page that I tore out of the little golden book. It was the back of that page. These were illustrations from the poem that was on the back. So I just kind of put those things on, filled in some spaces, got some more wrapping paper. Love this wrapping paper, so I just went ahead and glued it to the back. So I've already got a start for whatever I do on the back. I've already got some paper and stuff on there. And so I'm trying to figure out how to tie this all together, because I've got the photo and I've got the poem, but I haven't quite made it personal yet. I need to figure out how to make this about me. So as I'm doing this, I decided to punch some holes, and lo and behold, I punched a hole, and it was too close to the edge, and so it was a big hot mistake. So just very simply, I just took a piece of scrap paper and I put it over the hole and repunched it, and now it's fixed. So then I found part of the blueprint that said elevation, and I really like that part because he was high up in the tree, or she was high up in the tree, so I want to use that. So I go ahead and tape that on, and I'm just really starting to finish this up, but I'm still trying to figure out how can I make this personal, because right now it's just a picture of a bird in a poem, and I'm somehow I need to bring it to me. So as I'm doing this, I'm thinking, well, you know what? These guys are they're in my backyard. I can always count on them every winter. The cardinals are always there. In fact, I just saw some last week, right before one of our many, many snowstorms. So I'm going to grab my white pen, and I think what I'm going to do is where it says elevation, I'm just going to write from my backyard, because that's where they are. And then I kind of think, okay, I want a little bit of a title. So I grab some of my alphabet stickers, and I'm going to put a title on that just says Winter Friends. And once I do that, I'm like, you know what, this is good. And it is busy, and there is a lot going on, but that's okay. It's just a little collage. It's got a sweet little poem. It's got a photograph that I took that I was really proud of. And yeah, and it reminds me of my backyard and how I can always count on those cardinals to be there. So once I'm done with this, I'm going to go ahead and stick it into my journal, and I'm going to call this one good. So guys, thank you so much for hanging out with me today. I hope you enjoyed this video. I hope it inspired you to maybe look through some poetry books or look some up online. There's tons of poems online. And just have fun and play around with the words and the text and the illustrations and photos and see what you come up with. I hope you guys are healthy. I hope you guys are happy, and I hope you do something creative today. Bye.